Hi, Allison. Thank you so much for posting your image in the Refined Community group on Facebook. Sorry for the delay on this. Still getting used to the new schedule with virtual learning, basketball, and all those things, and finding a few quiet minutes to do these videos. But let me go ahead and get started. So in the group, you had posted this image. Let me go ahead and get it up nice and big for everybody. And we're asking which preset you would use to kind of get this tone that you wanted to kind of go for this vibe, these tones, the softness, the lifted shadow, which is what I'm going to call that for those that don't know. You see the contrast is very low on these. And I said that I felt like it would probably be Patina from Refined Times Caroline Trend, maybe number 4 from KT Mary. And I was actually wrong on that one because I did a little test, but I'm going to show you and show you the adjustments I would make on your images, talk about your images a little bit, and go from there. So a couple things looking at the mood board to start, because I think that's important when dissecting this, is the images you pulled are amazing. The one thing I do want to point out is all of your greens are sagey greens, and that's not from the edit, that's from the actual plant life that they are. So eucalyptus, this is lamb's ear or a very similar plant. Olive is very sage green in nature. I'm not sure if these are apple or olive in here. I can't tell, it's too far away. But if you look at this green compared to this green in the back here, that's very warm and yellow. They're just definitely, and this looks like maybe lavender, rosemary, something on that, which again is on the teal, gray, sagey side. And these grasses here are also a little bit warmer than all the others, but definitely a little less yellow, bright, tealy saturated green. So with that in mind, that's something we're going to notice as we're going through your files, because some of the greens that you presented were the opposite of this type of green. So you can't edit those down to look like this. It's more or less going to have to be maybe trying to shoot in areas that have this overall tone, or only showing those in your portfolio, etc., etc. But let's dive in, and I'll talk about it as we go. But I wanted to point that out. And a couple of things I noticed just when looking at this is that we do have a cooler shadow in most areas. I looked in here to see the cool shadow. The blues tend to lean a tiny bit on the teal and cool side. That helped me pick the presets as well. You can see in here that the shadows are a little more on the blue cool side. And again, in the hair highlights and the shadows, is that this one's a little warmer, but here I can see it's a little cooler. So that's the things I'm looking for when I'm choosing my preset and kind of picking through. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with one of these down here, and I'm going to go ahead and use RA for those that don't know. In develop mode, down here in the bottom left, click the RA, and you can pull up your reference image. And I'm using this so I can get the white balance in the same tone, I can get my greens in the same tone, and really give me an idea of how to edit this image in this palette. And you'll note that this is obviously either, I'm not sure if it's different people's work or not, but you know, this doesn't look like this. So it's going to help us get this in the same genre. So for those of you that don't have film or are trying to change your editing style, this is a perfect way to do that, is using a reference, and it'll help you push this to get more like this. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is let me just take a look at auto and see if it gets me a little closer to the white balance, and it does. So you can see just how warm this was, understandably so. Low setting sun in the evening, we're going to have a little bit of that golden hour. But we want it to be a little cooler because these are very much on the cooler side of things. And then from there, let's go ahead and start with patina, because I'm pretty sure this is probably the direction we're going to go. And you can see right off the bat, even without changing anything, that this is already in the right tones. You know, we've got this kind of khaki beigey color here. Her dress shifted, just for reference, so you guys can see just how much shift was done. And the greens are bright. But they were bright in this. So let's look at that. They were very saturated and very warm and very yellow. But you can see that they did shift to, let me do this real quick. Should have white balanced the reference real quick for you guys. Let me undo this real quick. Undo preset. Put this over here. So that's the white balanced one, just to the auto, just so we have an idea of where we're at. So there's the first patina. So you can see just with the auto white balance here, that's all we did, and then patina, how much color shift happened in the files, which got us a lot closer to this look. And then from there, we're just going to lift And just like you guys have seen in the thing I say in almost every single video, is we're not doing this. Let's keep it so if you really truly want that timeless, authentic film look, you do not want to do this. This is a highly overexposed film look, and it's just not proper, and it's just not good. So you want to watch your whites, and if you need to lift more, you're going to lift from the shadows. Let refined tone curves do the work for you. That's why they're built the way they're built, is to do this. So that gives you an idea of just it's auto white balance and exposure. I'm going to say something real quick. Auto white balance does not always work. Different cameras, you know, everything. It's not always spot on. Sometimes daylight is better. Sometimes hand tweaking is better. So that doesn't always work for you. And then from there, I'm going to, I wish I could zoom in further on this, but I can't. Just tweak my white balance to taste. The things I'm looking for is in here, we have your beigey grays and greens, and I'm comparing it. I'm looking back and forth and comparing if we're in the right color palette, and we are. You can see these literally are almost identical color palettes. The khakis, we don't really have a khaki reference here, but the creams all kind of go, and skin tone, she's a little warm, but remember how warm this image started, and we can always just back off of that just a tiny bit. And then I'm looking for magentas, and I can see a little in here. I know you guys might not be able to see it. I see color on a perfect scale, so I see it, especially in his little legs. He's obviously a lot fairer than mom, so there's going to be a skin contrast there, but I might just pull back magenta just a smidge. And if you guys pay attention to especially her skin here, let me put it back where it was, is when you pull that back, you see that shift. It gets to that more orangey versus peachy look, and that tends to lend to the colors we're seeing in these skin tones here. So the only issue we have at this point, this green looks like this, is this right in here. And again, like I mentioned, it's hard to compare these greens because they are different kinds of greens. So what you can do if you really need to adjust them is just to hand tweak your greens, is to go in here. I would not go much further teal than patina already is maybe just pull them back a little. And you don't want to go gray. That just looks weird. So you just want to find a sweet spot and just pull them back a little. So that's just your hand tweaking. And that would just make them less in your face. But you want to be consistent throughout the session as well. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And that's how I would edit that to be in this family. The other thing we see here is a lot of lifted shadow, very soft. And you can probably pull back the contrast a little more. Patina 1 is the lowest contrast and the lowest shadow. So you could pull it back a little more if you want it even softer. And that just gives you a little more of that kind of muted look. And that would help you there as well. Let's go ahead and compare this to Katie Mary, since that was what was in question. I'm going to put this over here just so we have it, and I'm going to start from scratch. Let me go ahead and do this for now, and let's scroll down. So initially I thought it was going to be 4, and mainly that's because it has a very cool tone to it as far as skin tones, a little more green in it. And I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go back to auto real quick. But what I did notice when clicking through is that the greens were just not cool enough for that preset in comparison to your references. And when I clicked through, I found that 2 was better. So I'm going to go ahead, let's just go ahead and edit this up. And the difference with 2, and you can see the greens are actually a lot better for you here. But the rest is not as cool in the shadows and stuff. And that's where you can see the presets are actually quite different from each other. There's just different shifts in different areas. And, you know, we can hand tweak this a little bit. It's just not going to be the same as patina. So I can see more magenta in this. So I'm going to take some of that out. But when I do that, you can see that my greens get a little warmer. So let's do that. It's already a lower contrast preset compared to Refined Times Caroline Tran. And then here's the 2. So let's compare it. So you can see how much magenta is in her dress in comparison. Skin looks pretty similar. Let's see here. Hair, you can see the coolness in the shadows. So there's your big differences there. And these subtle things add up. Blues, huge shift in the blues. Let me see if I can cool this magenta down just a little more. I don't want to go too much because I don't want to take it all out. Let's see here. Yeah, I feel like that's too much now. You can see the blue shift. This is definitely a cooler blue, which is a lot more similar to your reference. Oh, it drives me nuts. I can't zoom in on that. You know, you definitely have a little more cooler tones in your blues than more of a magenta. So let's go back. Khaki. That either one would be fine for your reference. And then in the stones, you can see the shadow tones are definitely warmer and more on the magenta side than patina. So with that said, I feel like patina is a better fit. These greens may be better for you, but I feel like that you can make it work either way. I can cool these down and pull them back. All right, and let's just go ahead and do a few more. I feel like that gave you a good, I'm gonna leave this, put this back over here so we have it. And let's do something non-green. So for this one, we're going to kind of reference in here, here, and here for this, since it's a still life. And let's just go ahead and shoot up to patina. And I'm just increasing exposure. Maybe a tiny bit of warmth, but I really don't want to put a lot of warmth in it because I want it to have this nice muted feel to it, which it already does because of the color palette you worked on. And again, just something simple as pulling up the contrast can help you a lot as well. And let's look at the before and after. And that was really just one click of patina. I didn't even white balance. I think I maybe warmed it up a tiny bit. And exposure. And I feel like that would fit right. You could throw that into this mood board with no problem at all. Let's go ahead and do this image because we have a lot more green and such in it. Actually, let me do this real quick. Let's go ahead and pop this over here. Let's do KT Mary real fast just to see if we find something different there. Same thing, I can see the magenta in this one, so I'm going to lean on 4. This is where having both collections might be good for you. The greens were not what you needed them to be in 4, but the rest works in 4. So like this works. And again, warm it up just a smidge like we did the other. And so I just want to show you guys the differences here. So you can see skin tone overall is relatively similar. This one's a little cooler, but you can see the difference in the shadows. And that's the stuff that starts adding up and making the difference in how the overall palette looks. And of course, KT Mary's has grain built in, and Caroline Trans, you just add it in. So for what, I'm not looking at grain right now, I'm mainly worried about color palette. And you can see patina has a little more warmth in the highlights, but this is not a bad color palette in the highlights either. And that's easy to tweak. So either one of those would, it's not what I meant to do, sorry about that. Either one of those would be fine in this. So you technically could use, I would say, 4, 2, or patina for this. So let me go ahead and just kind of work on a few more images and see where we get. So let's take a look what auto does. Warmed it up too much. See, like I said, you don't always use it. Let's go ahead and try to cool it down just a little. And I'm going to pull the magenta out. I can see it in here. You guys might not see it as much as I do, but I see a ton. So I'm going to pull that magenta out. And while I do that, I'm watching her skin because I don't want her getting too orange. And here's your before and after. And it looks pretty good. Again, the greens, we could cool down a little bit if we wanted to. And go from there. Let's go ahead and pop this over and reset it and take a look at patina. Here's patina. Lifting. And making sure as I pull the temperature down, the only thing I'm focusing on is their skin. And I'm wanting, I keep doing that. I keep trying to zoom in on that. And I'm wanting to kind of get these skin tones. So they're slightly warm, but they're soft. They're easy. So that's what I'm looking for when I do this. And then once I get the skin where I want it, I'm seeing if I can push it a little further for the greens. You can see this color right here is very much this color right here. Looking at these highlights in the water, those fit these, the blues in here, the highlights in here. So we know we're on track. Water highlights right there all work. So it definitely looks like patina for this particular, again, water highlights. I'm looking at the beige and khaki. They all are in the exact same tone. So I feel, and again, here's stone, and these are obviously stones. So you're in the same palette. So again, for this, you could probably pull it back a little bit. If you wanted to pull a little more magenta out, you could. And again, softening, strengthening, you can just do this or click one of the other presets if you need a little more pop for this session. These are very lifted, so I wouldn't suggest that. If anything, I would just hand tweak the contrast if you need a little more. But I feel like that works really well. So now let's get into your greens. So hopefully this video will save because it's getting long, but I think this is fun and a good way to kind of learn what works and what doesn't work. So we have these, and let's just go ahead and do this one. So for this one, first thing we want to look at is this is a lot of green. And this green, he's wearing like a blue-gray or just an all-gray suit, is very, very warm. They are not very warm. So that means this green is super warm because it's very warm even though they are cool toned. So we are not going to get this color palette out of this green. I can tell you that now, but we can try. So let's go ahead and click patina and lift the exposure to where we want it. And so I automatically know I have to warm it up, which means this green is going to not go the direction we want it to go because we actually need it to be the opposite. And you can see whatever this tree is here, this is more of a gray-green tree, but then the rest of this is not. So you can see these little, I don't know, almost like cattails or something back here are also in the gray-green, kind of sagey tones. The rest is not. So for this image, we have to warm it up to get their skin tone proper because right now they're in the cool shadows, so they're cooler. So I'm just going to look at the skin. I'm not worried about the greens right now, just looking at skin. Add in a little magenta. And then when I pull back out, the green is super warm and not the palette that you want. So part of this is shooting in areas that you want that fit the palette that you want. Obviously on a wedding day, you have to work with what you've got and you're going to have to make the best of both worlds and find your in-betweens. This may not be what you fit in your portfolio if you're trying to get this complete look. But let's go ahead and see what we can do to kind of get this a little more in the avenue you want. So all I'm doing is I shifted it to the green a little bit, and then I pulled the saturation back. Please don't do gray grass. It's weird. So kind of find a happy medium between the warmth and then your cool tones. And I think this is pretty good. We can actually warm this up a little bit more. And then I'm going to use my other trick, which is my yellow trick. Since we don't have any yellow in the wardrobe, we're going to look at these yellows here. We're going to click on the yellow slider, and we're going to shift it to the green. And then we're going to pull it back some. And that way you can kind of find that happy medium and neutralize it a little. Let's see if maybe we can shift this skin a little warmer too. There you go. So unfortunately, it's a lot more tweaks for an image like this, but that's what it's going to take when you're dealing with open shade, full sun, you know, peachy skin and greens that you want to get a little cooler. And that's what it would take to get that image in the right color palette, if that makes sense. So making a preset like this, you could probably make one for yourself. There wouldn't be one that would be universal enough for us to sell. That's not even something I would even attempt because it varies so much from situation to situation. But that would be the tweaks that you could make to get this, and then you might be able to sync it and get close enough to hand tweak from there. Let's go ahead and copy this and see what happens if we try it, say, on another image. And that actually works pretty good. So once you get those levels down, say you're working on the same same session, you would just copy and paste your settings and it would keep you from overdoing all of those tweaks. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. That looks beautiful actually. That works. It's close enough. and it's not perfect, but we dealt with a very warm green. Let's go ahead and shift this over here. I'm going to hide it real quick, and I'm going to re-edit this and see what it takes to get there. So we have to warm up. So once we get their skin where it's nice and warm, then we have to hit those greens and get them kind of where we want them. And then we're shifting the yellow greens back here. We don't want to do too much because you're going to change the green in her hair as well, or the yellow in her hair as well, which we don't want to overdo. Maybe give her a little pump on the skin here. I feel like I went too heavy on those greens. Yep, still this was a little warmer, and I actually like that better. So there you go. So you can make your own quick same session preset, or just copy and paste. That's what I do a lot when I edit. And see if that works for you. That actually works pretty nice. So that would be how I would take on this situation to achieve this light palette. So let's go ahead and do this one. Let's go ahead and look at auto. That might be too warm. Patina, increase. It was too warm. And I'm actually gonna, this is one of those flatter images, so I'm gonna do 2. And there you go. It works totally because you can see all these tones work with this, creamy highlights, work with this, and there you go. This was the other one that was a little bit of a beast, and you can see her skin is actually on the cooler magenta side, but the greens are on the very, very warm yellow side and very saturated. So I knew from the start that this was going to be a tough edit to get over here, and I don't think you really can. So here's Patina, which we've already achieved or recognized as the best preset for this look. I'm working sheerly on skin to start. I never worry about everything else. I always get the skin where I want it first, pull a little bit of that magenta out, and then I try to tackle the greens. So you can see already we've got a good skin tone, and maybe can even get a little warmer, which means this got warmer too. And then again, comparing skin tones, and even here. And then we can try to tackle the greens. Again, it's going to be a hand tweak situation, but you're going to be limited because you want the greens to look authentic, and this does not look authentic for this plant. So you can maybe just pull it back a little so it's not so in your face. The yellows look good, and I feel like it has to be warmed up just a touch. Maybe take a little more of the magenta out. There you go. And that's really the best you're going to get for that, because this green is just so green. It's so saturated. And let's go ahead and do patina on this lovely lady here. And let's warm her up a little, just looking at her skin. Again, we are in shade, but we want good skin tones. So then we're just going to shift our greens as needed from there. And maybe a smidge of magenta. Give a little, I know, okay. Cropping always helps get rid of a lot of extra green if needed. So if we look at her skin, we're right on par here. She could probably even use a little more warmth. So instead of tweaking the whole image, I may just give her a little boost right here. And then you might be able to pull this back just a little more. And again, there's no way to get these greens to look like this without them looking completely fake and not even like the right plant. Which for a commercial situation like this, you would want it to be pretty authentic. So especially if it's going into publication or anything like that, you'd want to keep this pretty authentic. So there you go. I hope that helps you guys, and you specifically, Allison, determine what might be best for your images to get this look. I really had fun with this challenge. I was looking forward to it since you posted it, because I was curious to see what would work and to be able to have the challenge to kind of find a particular palette. So in my opinion right now, I feel like Patina, the Patina collection from Refined Times Caroline Tran, is going to be your winner. Let me know what you decide to do.